People and blogging, running and jogging, boxing, boxing, boxing. Okay, I'm live, but nobody's on here yet. Boxings don't forget. It sings or says or not. It's cold while hot, but led to be led by warmth. Boxings. Since semi-ancient times, the, that has been converted though. To exceptions, the exception nature to nature's method of teaching, native pure, were set up to have syntactically that defended simultaneously can't afford the short words or the protractions as the revelations that come with the short words for the native voice. See, President slash Chief, I thought best boxing. It teaches things. Boxing was revealed in ancient times before the campuses became sciences, the human science became tactically, criminally re engineered. So it is not by accident, for example, what is hyper evidential, that and where and how all these different cultures shared what was not um, at one identity ground position as Rome. It was the species volume science as it had been revealed before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced, which is a phrase we need to have used since some ancient times. The experts on the law have been using the law's phrases in nature, criminally foreign influenced, as victim predators that sustain, maintain the predator parts invested, individually grouped and together, then needing to hide that and to hide from and hurt. Each age of fact, human nature's locations, areas, and states means actually to discernment of it, of the all the hyper evidential ways. It is recorded that locations are not only tactically, criminally foreign influenced and hyper tactically, but it is self valued and that is used and has been used remotely, relevant to a method measuring and maintaining other, told that each age of fact, human nature, sickly distinctly. To keep out sickly, non distinctly, each age of fact, human nature stands abridged. The sciences they are forced to know, even when wanted, it is naturally wanted. There is not there is not really the right to assembly. There is not, and so for example, CBS, please respond because WFSB is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. People from my middle school made confessions into where and how. There are people with the executive branch and with the political branch, and it turns out courts through time too, and all tied to them exceptions and all that the same thing. They are with overt criminal enterprises, plural, private ones, and uses by the sense and sensibilities or the nervous system of people individually grouped in together relative to relative to why and how we couldn't be, no one was allowed to be the quality of fact, human nature, to tell American history correctly. For example, honestly, regarding our founding parents, where and how too, they didn't have free speech. They had to counter extort our other founding parents because everyone was rightfully terrorized, not just because they were terrorized. For there was a reason they were terrorized. It's like telling someone, you know, in other words, fear. There's a reason for it. They haven't allowed how the emotions are about what is simultaneous. So since founding, all formal locations of evidence reception, data reception, identity reception, and then including further grounds identity, further less and more, while more. And relative to what is actually the reason why we're supposed to discern the difference between what is variable and constant relative to value. Again, no longer relative to the native. Now abridged systems. How in New York City no one could plant anything. No one could just go and their people stacked upon. And all exceptions, exception nature, the suburbs from countries A through Z have a whole bunch of hyper evidential proofs of the existence of that breaching method that was torture involved, replacement of free speech with tactically forced, methodically forced on everyone, uses of breaching method implied criminal and serious natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments and collusion, simultaneously as names treatments, titles treatments, grounds, voices, distinctions, treatments. We are the voice of the hyper simultaneous in its positive or negative relationship to itself. Bach sings with campus self, but species body does not hear, does not try. Every day of the year is supposed to be good for Santa Claus, decipher. Regardless of how that came to be. We're supposed to understand the difference between how we're supposed to understand how there could be a positive used as for a negative, used to get over on exception nature, actually as they are. Not one identity of either exception or not, but one / 3 / 5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature are differentially exceptional, are differentially hyper exceptional, and constantly, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, where and how manifest is demonstrated the quality of diffusion we are. Not only as the quality of our physical bodies, being positive or negative, planting a seed, for example, or being the fact-keeping nature that furthers what can't defend itself and afford the ground to have an identity of relationship to itself, where someone could walk out their house and plant the seed and have it grow. You may know, but have found not the words to speak American history in the soul's voice through the filters relevant to where and how the short words have been that our founders left us to speak and to have spoken. They have been replaced. All pace, all pace, all gather round, Bach sings. I teach you things. So please, Gayle King and CBS. For example, Gayle King and doctors associated with Anthony Fauci and their patients and criminals, the quote, the crazies, unquote, and people from Sandy Hook involved with the kids, and the people that put their patients and criminals away have roles with federal crimes with children with them first, and physical delusions. You don't have, so this is relevant to where and how those mass physical delusions, how they get away with them still being there, like pretending that New York is fathomable. I mean, New York is free. I'm not saying to blame that. See, everyone blames on other things, others, and or on themselves, when nature and wild nature and continually demonstrates this with proofs to our correlation nature. But you guys have that forsaken, not native pure. No matter if you're a colonist, American citizen, or a Native American. If you don't understand and value that why and how it's a native pure, you're valuing systems other than the one that causes positive or negative value nature progressions, acts of nature's evolution's fruits and gifts, means out of nowhere. How it is hyper functional. Is it's how it is relevant to Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space/existence being our relationship to itself. Excuse me. That's only one of the ways it is in demonstration of how it is a trinity. And exceptions in exception nature, how it demonstrates how it is bound as a five semi-natures bound, for example, because we are inside this. The notes of music, not just of Western music, individually grouped and together. They have an identity / IES of relationship to themselves / S, individually grouped and together. The same reason why and how there are individuals grouped in species, not just with our species. And there are exceptions in exception nature. For example, one cell replication. I forgot what it's called. Where one cell replicates itself, the cell division. I forgot what that's called with with the cell division and growth like that. Vaccines. So there is an identity theft method that also makes confessions through time because where and how the interbranch roles have with it. So Gayle King and Anthony Fauci have roles with also like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. And CBS has national, international news too, but also they connect with like WFSB in Rocky Hill. And there are locations next to it with people involved with on and off the state judicial branch offices and houses, locations next to it, and people on and off the state prison offices and houses and locations next to it involved with identity thefts and frauds and slanders relevant to where and how the one way it hurt Native Americans A through Z sickly, non-distinctly, was missed because they were hurting everyone sickly, distinctly, specifically for the Native Americans, not to make the right syntactical counters to that which took their education and everyone's education, but had taken the education of the people involved with that. Specifically, so when they were saying, blaming on things like the white man, and then defending that, it's defending what can't defend itself. And B, to defend the quality of fact-cheating nature necessary to counter criminal insidiousness / hyper-criminal insidiousness associated with the breaching method that had employed countries A through Z, and then further as grouped countries to defend themselves and their logic and their fact-cheating nature values relative to where and how as systems other than that one native pure that causes positive value nature progressions, action natures. There are proofs that whoever invented it doesn't realize or did. I mean, the phrase hunter-gatherer, there are needs for them in the past to hide from hurt and value hurt. Correlation nature is actually inherent active and progressive means by what is actually hyper evidential. So evidential. So, for example, that and how passions and emotions are about how relative to where and how the hyper simultaneous is functional, but those functions are cut off. And so what emotions are about, people use it to lie, interbranch. There are only three branches of government. So each individual individually grouped together, they were told to use immunities from prosecutions and their associations with people with immunities from prosecutions to further roles with that nature of identity theft and fraud method slash S that histories have to be told through to then tell themselves at last. Because we are not free at last until we have a quality of fact keeping nature and sophistication having spoken to us or speaking for us and to us. I'm doing now, but I'm not doing it formally. So Weathersfield Police Department and other police departments, they have roles with identity thefts and frauds, also with the judicial branch. So they have methods where and how they need to pretend other. So those are manifest where and how the executive branch has methods manifest that are bound by the breaching method originally instilled. And then further, they have grouped methods because the judicial branch has methods singular too, where they're methods plural, but I mean by where they're the judicial branch, every member of it, people who work at the door, and from to the people who bring to stack stuff into the vending machine. All the three branches of government, all exceptions nature tied to them. The military, for example, they share databases with the prisons and the interbranch. There have been roles stacking fake things into databases with this method of identity theft slash frauds. They use these areas of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of just the identities of a whole bunch of countries individually grouped and together, sharing kids here and there. And so it is also relevant to where and how this has been vertically and horizontally and categorically connected. So they have people involved with identity thefts from behind our backs in campuses when we're at younger stages. And they make they put the whole array. They make all exceptions because they put the arrays of opinions relative to fact reception treatment, data reception treatment, the way they've been left doing it. For example, because of where and how what is hyper evidential actually recorded. Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, has been involved with federal crimes, worse than federal crimes. Has been involved with that, the identity theft slash fraud slash slander method slash S, where slash S is through our own, where slash S is through how the countries are individually grouped and together through their own. And the individual breaching method that proves that it is a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise that came as an identity of sophistication. Before modern nations, it was already bound. The only, realizing that nature was going to continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. That it could force, trick, hurt, persuade other people to blame on other things, others and or on themselves, and then to defend that. And then needing to defend nature demonstrating that too. Needed to keep that blame to other things, others increasingly need to defend where people are defending themselves physically, for example. And as fact treatment nature, the identity, the ground locations, voices, that we blame other things, others, ourselves wrongly, while blaming correctly the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, like predicate acts, criminal insidiousness natures, wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself. This phrase is associated with organized crime, but this time it's worse than war crimes. And so the people dealing with the distinction between war crimes, where they're framing counters to criminal insidiousness, and the people at countries and states, how they've been countering criminal insidiousness. They've been in collusion, though. They're backed into sophistication of logic, like the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, because it is just as it, and that insidiousness is also as people's opinions regarding politics, regarding the relevance of voting, for example, relative to their evaluation of the importance and the significance of what is simultaneous, let alone what is simultaneous / hyper simultaneous. Because voting, if they're in other words, they have both political parties involved with Weathersfield town offices through administrations roles with more World Trade Center attack crimes, and with WFSB, and they've been making allegations and fabricating evidences. Gail King sources say she's a style and method of it with other people. She pretends to be about. She's a victim predator. The reason there is no inclusion, the reason there is no justice, but other is pretended. Too late, because no science is honest offensively. The identity theft / fraud / slander against Black people is not spoken about, and people are pretending passions and emotions, and people are with simultaneously with physical delusions, and simultaneously people are involved by styles offensively preventing mandated law, but pretending to be for it and leaving out all they actually know, because that's also having been used remotely by the identities of sophistications here since before them. So former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk, in his defendant capacities, and his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, are also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with Hartford courts and New Britain Superior Court, leading up to the World Trade Center. And then shortly before the World Trade Center, they were involved at locations with crimes, where how their investigators, and their family members and everything, they've been involved with, manipulating even perception, where and how even is juxtaposed with physical delusions too. And they're pretending like we're saying that with no evidence. They're using words like physical delusion, and they're pointing to evidences and databases that they've been stacking fake. So there are a whole bunch of names tied to Gail King and to Anthony Fauci. I don't know Gail King or Anthony Fauci, but Gail King also has roles with all sides of Central Connecticut State University, people involved on off Paul Manafort Drive, as CNN sources. There's a Gary Sasso involved with people with forensics locations and state police and the training and the campuses that train them, that have been involved with them with identity theft, fraud, slanders. Specifically, we're focusing on that because it is also that which is relevant to where and how intercities they've been needing to hide lie progressions, illusions associated with them, in parallel to what has been interstates and international, leading up to the World Trade Center and attack. And since there are investigators associated with the World Trade Center already for other kinds of things, associated with World Trade Center, associated already with all kinds of things, including how the houses and the streets and the ground distinctions next to the state judicial branch offices in Connecticut and next to the state prison offices in Weathersfield / Hartford, Connecticut. They're both involved with identity theft, frauds, families, and uses of them. There are also roles with conversations about people with their teachers behind their back, on and off campus, criminally foreign influence, and uses of that. Relevant to when we come to New York City, before they start putting kids in jail, they had men and women involved with a whole bunch of natures of uncharged, but actually recorded, even recorded how self-valued, because there were our founders had to leave everyone to start a country now enforced counter extorted. They had to hide their actual roles, also forcing the other founders counter to pretend they had different agenda that brought to the Constitution, Constitutional Convention. We know this, but others told in our face. The breaching method measures and maintains others told different, distinctly from, but also non-distinctly from our own, needing for their own reasons to pretend they understand history dishonestly. How are you? Mr. Jane Doe, how are you? The wall. My father used to play that song for us when we were kids. He used to hit the brakes on the car when that song came out by The Wall. Pink Floyd, The Wall. We're not allowed to sing other people's songs. We don't need no education though. We don't need no ed. That's how it's not. We're not allowed to be singing people's songs. That's too bad though. There should be a button that we could press to sing other people's walls. I mean, other people's names. But in other words, Happy New Year though. So hello, oh my God, Antoine, my best friend, love you so much. Oh, thank you, Jana. Happy New Year to you and your best friend. Boxings, boxings or says or not, because everything is in demonstration of the Trinity. See, we have had the Trinity left out from our reason because there are revelations. And everyone already invested everybody else. So happy New Year's to you guys. Blaming everything else, other things, others, ourselves for the real cause of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, natures, tall locations. All we have to do is agree on that. And we get it. And now I'm sick of speaking about negative things all the time, but that's what I have to do because WFSB and Connecticut news people attached me to fake words and my family to fake words. They lied about legal cases with the FBI and with Wethersfield Police and with a police chief years ago, at least one police chief years ago, involved with a police chief Cintron, involved with predicate acts on my street, and with everyone forced to speak through others. And then they're because they use tricks where they're have been using the right to lie to fabricate audio and video. And because I even caught them replacing audio and video over the phones and things like that because no one's watching. They have all kinds of, so because I caught them intercities on and off the campuses hurting kids, further roles with the principal child abusers campus before they was caught. That same campus years ago, the daughter of that same principal had men and women that were involved criminally foreign influence with his daughter's boyfriend, rather. They did you so wrong. You don't deserve that, Anthony, to punish you for speaking the truth. In other words, it's an identity theft / fraud / slander method against the people of New York City, sickly distinctly from the people of suburbs or of Hartford. And George Washington came to this town. I live in Wethersfield, Connecticut. And he had to leave slavery entrenched north and south, here in Wethersfield, Connecticut, too. Right where he had to come to counter extort the people, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, to force them, to help us. He had to leave slavery entrenched in Wethersfield. Right around the corner there, from there, there's a witch trials place. So like the breaching method measures and maintains, like witch trials, blamed on other things, others, or on selves, rather than being blamed on the breaching method that was sickly against everyone. If anyone spoke up, the sense and sensibilities of all these other jobs, titles, identity ground people, they were the complete possession syntactically. So sense and sensibility, use James Austin's phrase. So, nervous system, they wouldn't be able to accept it. And so that would be sensed by people involved with the system, even grouped, even countries grouped before America was even found. They were also involved here with the with the So the American Revolution wasn't against England. The American Revolution was to begin to win a revolution that was never won yet against what has the complete possession of countries A through Z, has them grouped too, has their logic as grouped countries too, like relative to their responses to threats with nuclear weapons, relative to the responses regarding the practicality of going to space, of being and having been there, zero gravity. See, the weight of a planet is nothing to zero gravity. You know, and we're going to be systems other. Nature's going to keep demonstrating that we are not going by its system of causing positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And so it's demonstrating negative value nature progressions, acts, nature rule stuff. So these people needed it to sound like I'm taking it personal. People from the Brighton Superior Court, even if they really perceive that, they are simultaneously, to an extent, making it up, pretending it's personal. They brought this up. They sequence shift about that too. That's why it's also important to understand how it's an identity theft fraud. These people got brought up by the. They haven't responded to me with from the principal child abusers campus. They didn't let me tell on that, and they hid how all the confessions he made to me and over on our answering machine at the time. And said then to change it from being a phone conversation to keep everyone off that, the police criminally involved and as people involved with other child abusers know, they switched it to faked emails, and they have some medical families, foreign and domestic, a whole bunch of people tied to the families that answer the phones for the police and rolls with them with Wethersfield town offices. It has something to do with that, where they've been involvement with Afghanistan through time and with Korea through time, and with the people involved with identity thefts and frauds. I don't know at all. I know their names from other people. It's also where they speak other people's names, and then you walk by and you're going to see the person, and then you're going to remember their name. It's, in other words, they're planting evidence as fact, nature oriented, because they've never been an independent identity. Our stewards, private and interbranch, they have been, need to hide life progressions, need to hide remote uses of themselves, individually grouped and together. So they're pretending that I'm, and they're telling everyone like Gayle King's telling everyone lies about me and fake relationships between me and people I don't know. The only reason I know their names because they brought it up. And then it got brought up years ago later, timed intercities. People had roles with untimely deaths in Wethersfield and on Trinity College in Hartford. And the same people had roles with a murder at the time, real or made up, of a Greg Kyler. And they had the probation officers of people tied to him and things like that also involved with federal crimes against the people that were supposed to be, the probation officers of. Regardless of that, is all have to do with their narrative because they have plainclothes police and the campuses that train them involved with a whole bunch of countries with drugs and medicines crimes that are also still uncharged. But, this is how the establishment does this wrong. Exactly. So the establishment, they backed them just like the overt criminal enterprises into logic that can't defend themselves. They can't with their logic, they can't defend themselves. And it from being exploited by the logic of the breaching method to all locations, areas, and states. Before our founding parents were born, it was databases oriented. It was all locations. between Native Americans A through Z. That was sustained. It was a breaching method consciously. It already had done this to countries A through Z. So England doesn't remember English history because English was and is its identity of its peak sophistication. We have some smart, intelligent people associated with each country. England has some smart, intelligent people. But that peak sophistication was used remotely. Before it was sophistication, and while it was sophisticated, and the non-sophistication, people's opinions / convictions, A through Z. This method replaced the short words and revelations that our founders left us to have taught to us at the youngest ages with other. And it showed effectively, it keeps showing, all associated with those locations with that, how they need to keep those short words and the revelations from being used. Already, what the breaching method caused and maintains, nature demonstrates means to show that, but those means have already been applied as means with people blaming other things, others, or selves. Like, for example, when they say, what's causing the shootings in New York City or in Hartford, Connecticut through time? They have even the people that study such as family members involved with fact-keeping nature-oriented instances and narratives and defenses of them that have the involvements of those locations. And people don't want that. So people want to just, people are provided means to keep all those naive convictions and opinions that blame other things, others, themselves. All we have to do is free honesty, and we have means out of nowhere. The whole country wants to, for free, help the people of New York City and all the cities and in other countries. We want to claim identity of the ground, identity of relationship to itself, that which is native pure, which is only going to keep increasing. But it's not going to keep increasing positive value nature that's also positive unto itself here. The rest of space nature has no criminal foreign influences, no. Only our one little species. Kawa, I don't know what Kawa, Native Americans are free and Kawe. Some Native Americans, even, in other words, still, all the water is denatured. We have to go by the native system. So the reason why Native Americans, why their difference from us is increasingly discernible, is because we're not going by the native system. Because no one's defending the words of it, because everyone was entertaining the only words that were left, short words abridged, the abridged Constitution. George Washington said he could tell no lies. That's what we were told regarding a cherry tree. There are proofs that is deciphered regarding how they wanted us simultaneously. We do know that they wanted us to tell about how they did have to hide their roles with the American Revolution. They wanted us to tell about that breaching method that was capable of sensing and destroying, hurting, torturing, tricking, hurting, persuading, forcing people, everyone around anyone who was going to even fathom saying things that could get a unity anywhere near enough to stop what countries individually grouped together themselves would quash out, even though it's against themselves. We are only one. In other words, that native system is why and how we are individual grouped together, finite grouped together, species by volume. American Evolution anime is really good. Oh, I never saw it. What are your opinions on Andrew Jackson? We'll see. To get Andrew, to get those, we have to address what our founding parents did with the North and South, forcing them to fight with each other as fact-keeping nature, knowing that they would have to, that the North, entrenched with slavery, needing and wanting it because of the jobs they had associated with it, like mental health care, like psychology, they had because of their roles with databases. all positive treatments like education. Columnist A, this woman, she's the teacher. They're gonna make positive and negative treatments in collusion. People A through Z incapable of defending themselves and their positive and negative treatments, which are simultaneously identity treatments, in themselves or anyone else from a breaching method onto all locations. So the ground has been tactically denatured. Its identity of relationship to itself has been tactically denatured too, distinctly, from since before our founding parents were born. So nature keeps demonstrating negative value, nature progressions, acts, and natures. So environmental change, rather than being about evolution's fruits and gifts, natural, it's about, other value nature systems, and increasingly people trying to make America great again, but won't be able to make it great again. People trying to make change that's going to be positive, but won't be able to make it positive again. People want to have unity, but won't be able to make a unity that's not a criminal insidiousness nature of unity. So it won't be able to defend itself and defend the independence that the nature of the law is. In other words, why it is a species body, one, singular, why it is individuals that make up the species body, why all groups, differences, have phenomenon greater than and more finite than their differences, while as the value of the differences. It is greater than the force. It is greater than and is more finite than the force, while as the value of the force, which surges through all things, alone, the hyper simultaneous. That's not even debatable, but without having proofs of the same thing and inherent to the active and progressively discernible with the logic of someone who wants to debate it. See, because the people with the law never value the treatments of simultaneous. They value time treatments with issues, subject treatments, case treatments, originally and still. They can't defend that and ourselves at the same time. They left out exceptions. See, they were showing how they were going to have to get away with that by hurting the people around them who have distinct needs, and natures naturally that they have to hurt to keep from, where and how those summary convictions and things like that, in place of the short words our founding parents left us to know and to understand. They have it replaced with, I forgot what I was connecting it to. But the point, so in other words, all we have to do, in other words, is force mandated law. And what is hyper, and when people are arguing about it, we have to allow people to argue with the courts. See, the courts have been lying about the integrity by themselves when they speak for anger relative to acts because of their roles with sequentialist self-value, and the police too. So the police have roles with gun crimes with the criminals since founding, because they knew we would have to speak for. These are the people that they're getting paid for it though. That's their job. But in other words, it's true. They're trying to. That's who we have to call. Who else can we call if something goes bad? So they know this. The breaching method knew this too, though. And so it has their phones involved with wire crime methods, with the identity theft, fraud, slanders, and they prevent writing, and they try to make fake exceptions. So when I was a kid, this is how people. There are people that were involved with falsified police reports And they used the police reports to attach me and other kids to fake locations, fake natures of ties to each other, even completely fake ties to each other. The courts have been speaking fake things into databases. Their family members have had roles with various natures of organized crime, originally still. So where no one wants to hurt everyone, everyone's looking over a lot of things because they have roles with it. They have roles with fact, cheating nature, identity theft, fraud, slander. If we don't counter this, the wrong outcome slash S stay formally, informally, and other. In other words, there is identity theft slash fraud slash slander against those people are getting killed and against the people that are killing them. And there are not even proofs that they're making the putting honest things into databases. No one's checking what they're putting. They've been using even the news media to hide their roles with killers and body dumping spots, like with people associated with Gail King. And then they get away with pretending that we're making conspiracy theories when that's what's recorded. I'm not talking about made up things. They know that there's a serial killer who's recorded tied to the people involved with the fake news that WFSB pretended they have crimes with their phones, wire crimes too. And with New Britain, Connecticut News, they attached me to fake emails because I caught them with child abusers. I also caught them with people that made statements that, in other words, there's a Mike DeMaine. I don't know Mike DeMaine. He went out of his way with men and women that told him to pretend other. And with two teachers I had involved with, he said that were Jewish. That now he's involved also with a whole bunch of people with the FBI and with the Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts, and Middletown courts, and people involved with prisons and job sites, and like teachers I had that they have involved with the intelligence community, with their extended family members, involved with identity thefts and frauds and slanders. And they attach everyone to fake words with each other because they want and need to pretend that the instances they didn't have involvements with it. But that's one of the things they did and do is make identity thefts and frauds instances, roles, tricks into databases, like a Debbie Gold, the daughter of a mayor. There used to be a mayor years ago. She pretended conversations with me, and she pretended all kinds of lies about me and my family, where there were evidences planting. Then she got a teacher to do so by lying about why whatever, by saying I yelled at her or whatever I thought. And in other words, that's what she did. She made some fake things up. I don't know what she was talking about. Then she lied about my response, and they put something in the databases. I don't know what it is. I never showed my parents the letter. But years later, that became relevant because of Joe Aiello. And I don't know, I never saw him on any of my campuses. One time there was an exception, but it was a dance, and he had asked me to go to the dance with his sister, who had a boyfriend at the time, and his other one. It was involved with people with the courts involved. They're planting evidences with these games. Also, people who were put in classes with me that are involved with federal crimes with the judges and prosecutors, with officers switching names, forging names, preventing writing to respond to. So they've been hiding such from Judge Napolitano. This is a method that uses live progressions from grammar schools to middle school. Then they use live progressions from middle school to high school with people that aren't even in the same campuses. They're planting evidence racketeering, identity theft, fraud, slanders roles, that so people can't go back and afford discern actually what was involved, because they have overt criminal enterprises and private ones involved with our campuses and involved with live progressions from, for example, where they have roles with, there are laws where politicians and people even with unions running for unions positions, they could lie about each other. And so they've been using that to exploit exceptions because they know exceptions were and are already being and haven't been exploited. So there are people associated with my school that I had nothing to do with. Never had a class with them. Like Joshua Stryker, who a girl, I don't know her name. I don't remember her name. I think I knew it once. I didn't know it went back then either. Knew it out of sequence. Associated with one of her girlfriends had a whole bunch of different boyfriends at the same time, and they were lying to her because they were involved with the intelligence community associated with Trinity College, UConn, Wesleyan, CCSU, Bryan College, Johnson and Wales, and Rhode Island. They're involved with identity theft frauds interstates because in intercities through time, identity theft frauds, slanders, illusions, positing, and they connect it for them. Because that's one of the things that is commonly involved with where how everyone gets sickly distinctly hurt and sickly non-distinctly. So one of the things we encounter commonly is how everyone's sickly non-distinctly hurt. And once we start doing this simultaneously, this reveals we're all being honest. So we all know that the people are getting hurt most by it. I hope we're going to help simultaneously first while doing everyone simultaneously. In other words, and there are a number of ways we could do this by admitting the problem /S and by admitting it globally so nothing goes down in the background to keep countries and individual groups together remotely, complete possession over their fake integrity. Same way the overt criminal enterprises are recorded, kept, needed to hide the same sequence as final African progressive lies with the private and interbranch ones. We have short words that are very capable, but we need to have mandated law followed. So they have they make it so you can't meet a girl. And they make it so the girls can't meet the guys, and all exceptions in other words, they have to hear all these things fake first. They have to ignore that, or they have to try to respond to it. And that's being measured and maintained. We have to understand how originally and still all natures of criminals and the people trying to counter them and everyone else were in collusion, and how they could be still, because they still are. Everyone's used speaking through other people. They're preventing mandated law, preventing writing. So rather than give me anything in writing to respond to, they're pretending they don't know that they're recorded, threatening people and demonstrating that they use their locations to fabricate audio and video, fake conversations and ties to people. The Wethersfield Police Department through time. They've been attaching little kids to fake words, fake ties to other kids, fake natures of ties to other kids, like with the Dillon family, for the people involved with the principal child abusers campus. They also stack all the names because these are a whole bunch of people, even with the prisons tied to them. So it becomes a lot of names. So they have a whole bunch of people with the name Christine. There's ones on Route 3 involved with with my name in the background through time. They went out of their way to make exceptions, to exploit exceptions, pretend to know me, pretend I had words with them ever. I never had conversations with them. In other words, all exception nature and demonstration is the same thing. They try to make exception pretend other. So there's also the name Cololo associated with the intelligence community, with people that are also a whole bunch of ways involved with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people on off the state judicial branch offices are involved with locations next to there. Even Wethersfield Pizza is involved with identity thefts and frauds with their phones, with Steven Stocko, fake conversations with me. He's involved with federal crimes with Wethersfield campuses and with New Britain, Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, involved also with the people on the child sex offender registry, and and various nature of drugs and medicines crimes with the kids, and with the Cololo the Colzano police with the farms with that, with identity thefts and frauds with that, uses of that to pretend people to fake locations, fake words, fake nature types, even fake uses of drugs. The people countering that are involved with their family members, identity thefts, frauds, slanders, as the ones on my street, all tied to that. Weathersfield, like there's a Jamie Smith and David Smith involved also with other neighbors and people tied to them, record, confess, demonstrate, confirms they're involved with stop and shops, managers at stop and shops, Weathersfield Police, other police forms, and various natures of federal criminals, including the co-defendants, a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in a 2006 district court case in Connecticut, who was and is involved also with predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University and on and off Trinity College leading up to that and since, and identity thefts and frauds and slanders. They have deans switching names, forging names, making confessions on campus, non-verbally, and then off campus, non-verbally tied to that. And they have been preventing writing. And they've been trying to use the identities of the campuses with these fake conversations, fake ties to people, fake natures of ties to people. So the identity theft, fraud, slanders. And if there are any missing people in Connecticut, come on my website. I'll show you how to force a better integrity for your police departments. I'm not a police officer. I'm not a lawyer. The lawyers are also recorded originally and still how fabricating audio and video styles and pretending not to realize it, and how getting away with it. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed their roles with ad placements that are involved with the extent of the natures of juxtaposed abuses of kids and of elderly that are also timed because there's connections between that. There are connections with like the family members of various natures of courts associated with the elderly homes criminally used, and the regardless if that was legalized, it was criminally legalized, just like criminal insidiousness was criminally legalized here. Our founders wanted us to demonstrate that. Yeah. And everybody left. So, I don't know if anybody's here. What are your opinions on Andrew Jackson? So Andrew Jackson. I have to look up about Andrew Jackson more, but we have to understand any of that. You have to understand how James Madison's plan and the counter extortion of the other founders was used to force a unity that is north and south that would also have to fight with itself as fact human nature, as slaves, as fact human nature slaves, but also as self-valued roles with it, because it was self-value through other motivations, natures, needs, interests, not the apparent ones, as ones relative to where and how the breaching method has to hide lie progressions, because its roles with everything at all locations. So it employed with nature would be demonstrating about it as means to keep everyone needing to hide from and hurt nature per their roles, doing that, not just as they're standing, and means to get away with it by blaming the standing means. In other words, I'm just evil like that because that's the colonization. That's just that's one colonist doing to another colonist. You know what I mean? They're everyone's hiding about they have additional motivations because they've been used remotely. So Anthony Fauci and Gayle King are recorded consciously, offensively pretending that we're making allegations about their names because their sources are recorded, attaching us to fake words. Both Fauci sources and Gayle King sources are attaching us to fake words. She has roles with also Robert Cheverry, who was the lawyer of Robert Luskin and various natures of federal criminals that were his co-defendants and their family members, also involved with locations around where his lawyer offices are, right near where the Harriet Beecher Stowe and the Mark Twain house are together there. No, Harriet Beecher Stowe with the concept of Uncle Tom, and that now having been applied to describe how they divide and employ divided method by breaching method. So it could employ sense and sensibilities. If someone's going to try to fight with the laws that are syntax oriented, they would sense it. And those laws were put in force for that. So they could keep identities of countries individually grouped and together, incapable of defending themselves and overcoming complete remote possession of all locations, areas, and states everywhere the human volume is now. Criminal insidious was propagated and is effectively maintained self-cultivated. So we have this nature that is great, where everyone is great, and we have actually recorded means to discern what makes everybody evil. All we have to do is force mandated law. All we have to do is force, counters to where and how WFSB has roles with people involved with. So there's WFSB, they're playing a game with wire crimes with their phones and with the people that do their news broadcasts. And these are people that are involved with and as the sources of Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN. And so they hide and plot and they keep stacking more fake things and lies and rumors with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and just sick people, and against the innocent people more and more. God help people that do anything wrong, way worse than them, because they're not honest when they say, "Oh, those are criminals." When the kids do bad things in Hartford, they are roles. Oh, I'm trying to get the inclusion. I'm trying to stick up for them. I'm black too. Black never spoke for humanity, honesty. Black and no one, black or white, if they try to speak, when they try to, they're attached to fake words. People pretend not to understand what they're trying to say. It has been so long when they're trying to speak, everybody. In other words, anyone who tries to defend the logic behind the hyper-evidential proofs that the identity ground locations were criminally foreign influenced since before our founding parents were born, and that's relevant, and the relevance of that, their logic is manifest with physical delusions. See, but they have it. The doctors have people that are associated with the news media too. Their sources, medical, they have physical delusions. What they're calling physical delusions are delusions. In other words, they're making things up too. They're fabricating fake stories with people into databases. The doctors associated with the courts and prisons are kept needing to hide lies with their patients and criminals at locations. They have roles since before they were caught with wire crimes. They've been using Facebook together for even the principal was involved with upskirt pictures. They have pictures and they have the kids of the doctors involved with sexual, medical, and judicial crimes against kids, personally tied to the various natures of courts and their families. Now, while they were growing up, they were making confessions and demonstrations to strangers through others. That's the only reason I know. One of the reasons I know that and how I don't know his name, but there are police forms associated with a Mike Pandoff in the corner of Elm Street or the corner of Wells Road and Walker Hill and Wethersfield. And all the way from there, all the way along from there to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, in front with other people, Church Street and Old Wethersfield, and at the corner of Church Street and Main Street, the Connecticut news media also has roles with various natures of organized crime and drugs and medicines crimes with doctors and with their patients and families involved with that corner, also with falsified police reports, drug, sexual, medical abuses of little girls that then as women had roles with it against others, with the principal child abusers campus. Even if they didn't go to that campus, they have roles with federal crimes with people that went to that campus with identity thefts and frauds. And so the news has been preventing people know that the news is dishonest. They don't know the extent of it. And so they have representatives of people's differences that they pretend passions and emotions with. And so then they, and with physical delusions. And they're trying to start fights between people. And they need fights between people because they're involved with this, with remote. This is part of it. They have black and white female judges with New Britain Superior Court also criminally involved, with male judges from the New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since they were involved. People associated with Gayle King and the corner of the sides of people on off Central Connecticut State University involved with elections crimes too, where fake news is one whole bunch of evidences, and with them pretending there is no evidences when fake news was noted evidence, is they keep attaching people to fake words, and they keep pretending they don't realize because they're using information in databases that they also faked, and that's recorded though. So we have to have mandated law when someone has to report child abuses. And what brought it up is also verified on Facebook by the people because they didn't want to be. There was Detective Dillon or whatever kind of police form he is now, and there's an Anna Dillon, and they got involved with some courts and prosecutors and judges with this, with real estate companies. So they have a Heather Hansen involved, and she reportedly made confessions about her roles with being raped by one of the Joe DeMoros involved at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, who's also been involved through time intercities with campuses and with people at parks involved with identity thefts and frauds, trying to take pictures of people to pretend they know those other people. And then, in other words, trying to pretend people are lying and making exceptions and preventing them time to demonstrate that they're putting fake exceptions. For example, they do. They prevent people's speech. They're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. They make things. They've been fabricating audio and video in cases, and not even when they don't have cases, they've been stacking fake things into databases. All private tied to them have been kept needing to hide the same finite, active, progressive lies and more actual motivations juxtaposed with other apparent motivations for evil and for greed. For example, regarding what people blame correctly on, but exactly wrongly the way the breaching method needs them to in New York City, in Hartford, Connecticut, in Wethersfield, Connecticut. So they have the parsings of classes. They have the uses of time treatments, simultaneously too fast, too slow to get around Forever Nature's integrity of Forever Nature. At all campuses. So Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN have been treating, or Fox News has been treating how they have the across the states. According to Fox News, they've been having problems with the school boards and with the parents. See, but they've been preventing mandated law. They've been preventing sequence shifts and predicate acts from being reported. And then by pretending people make conspiracy theories, and by then needing to value, and if we're not doing it themselves, attach people to fake audio and video. So the police have been replacing what is actually recorded audio and video with them with fabricated audio and video. They have been roles as people with overt criminal enterprises and private ones that also in that medical community and all exception nature, military, as ones foreign and domestic. These are ones involved that had attached Saudis to forced roles with them with predicate acts with the FBI and courts on and off Central Connecticut State University, people associated with Gayle King and WFSB predicate acts with her, and with them still speaking and pretending passions and emotions. Fix the fake news for them, you guys. Let's get them on paper and to one name and sequence, and let's get those judges say sorry to them, Detective Samuda. He's one of the sick degenerates. I believe he's the guy that and Elaine, uh, a woman at Central Connecticut State University when she was a student. She kept calling me something with the business office. Help people with the business office also tied to the police from Weathersfield. There's also an officer Poison. I don't know what he looks like, but he's one of the ones involved with people tied to the girls that know Elena Davenport, like this Heather Hansen, who was involved with a whole bunch of men at Central Connecticut State University, Trinity College, men and women who are involved with identity thefts and fraud, slanders. And with this Joshua Julian, I never had anything to do in my life. He's spreading different narratives, and that's one of the things they forced me not to tell what brought up the confessions, what brought up the principal child abusers campus, the people with the police, with the untimely deaths from my town that were also involved with as the cliques that were on and off Trinity College, with people also on and off through Trinity College, CCSU already had been involved with other natures of, federal crimes, untimely death rolls of juxtaposed natures, child abuses. These are people through time connected. And it's how they have the plainclothes police and their acting coaches and the private police of the campuses and their extended family members involved with the on and off campuses parts of it. See, because this method knew that they would have to have lie progressions and be needed to hide their actually recorded natures. Those campuses, since before our founding parents were even born, that pseudo sophistication method was put to all locations. So, WFSB, please don't pretend it's personal. Anthony Fauci and Gail King, don't pretend it's personal. You guys are putting us in fake words as media, and you're hiding. You're lying about your emotions and passions regarding the integrity of the people who answer the phones for you, regarding the integrity of your investigations and of your investigators. And you guys are keeping blamed on other things, others ourselves. And what is actually recorded was remote uses of the Black men and women from Weathersfield and their family members involved with identity thefts and frauds and slanders, wire crime acts and methods. And they have 2-Route Highway and a Mike Roberts and a black kid, or now a guy, on off the state judicial branch offices and involved with the neighbors of a Spotter family. Now that Spotter family is also involved with one of the judges' families involved, associated with a Delafair family involved with identity thefts and frauds and slanders with them, also tied to Town Line Drive and the businesses there. And their roles with uses of it tied to that, as their roles with intercampuses behind people's backs, stacking fake falsified police reports rolls, identity theft, fraud, slanders rolls, relevant to that's what it is. In other words, one of the things that hurts everyone sickly distinctly, north and south, and then now interstates, is an identity theft, fraud, slander method that they force, trick, hurt, persuade, maintain you guys self-cultivated roles with, blaming other things, others, or and ourselves. All those hyper-evidential truths that we have to use, truths that are not valuing, that are ones that are quality, that are not used to exploit and deny exceptions in exception nature. So now the breaching method knew that it would keep all formal identities of the law as voices, needing to value correlation nature separated from our means to discern all the increasing relevance the increasing significance, the increasing value of why and how the hyper-simultaneous is an exception nature, because it demonstrates what is variably and what is constantly relative to our quality of diffusion, that which is in our means of control as evolution's fruits and gifts. That's it. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Vaccines, all fight as one. Species body longs, the legion, tribe, exception nature, right.